write a little bit about that because it was a very special thing for me. And I've written a lot about my dad. You remember how I told you I wrote this whole thing about the train trip with my dad? And I'm still working on it. I think family is very important to me in my writing. So I've been trying to write about my family. But you know what? A lot of times when I write about my family, I feel like all I'm doing is just kind of telling a story of something that we did. I can't figure out what the significance is. So I'm trying to figure out how I can take something I wrote about my mom and make it significant. And I'm thinking that Livermore Gray did that with her mom. She just took something she did with her mom. She danced with her mom. And she took that and made it into something really significant. So I'm trying to figure out if I can do that with my writing. So let me read you something that I wrote about my mom. First I wrote this. And this is what I'm talking about. I feel like all I'm doing is telling a story. On Friday night, I caught a plane to Denver for my mom's 75th birthday. I was going to surprise her, but she surprised me instead. My flight was late, and when my dad kept driving around the airport, she got frustrated and bossy. She decided to jump out and check for me in the airport. So she got out of the car, came into the airport, and she waited behind some bushes until I came up the escalator. Then she jumped out when I walked by. How could this happen? She surprised me. I was supposed to surprise her. Can you believe that happened? I was surprising her, and she surprised me. So I read that, and I thought, well, it's kind of a cute story, but I don't know, it's just a story. I'm trying to get to the significance about what it is about my mom. So then I started thinking, well, what is it that I'm thankful for about my mom? And I started making a list, so I listed all these things that I love about my mom. Because I was kind of thinking of Livermore Gray. It sounds like she was kind of writing about what she loves about her mom. So I wrote these things that I love about my mom. Laughter, she can talk to anyone. My mom can go up to anybody and start a conversation. And I mean anybody. It's amazing. She compliments people all the time, me included. She's very selfless. She's polite. She used to be a teacher. So she's always trying to teach kids. She's a good cook. She loves animals. She sings, but she's not a very good singer. But I love that about her because she sings out of key. And she has all these phrases. She has this one phrase that I love. She always says, "Okay, world," like when she's getting ready to do something. So I wrote all that. And I thought, okay, now I'm getting somewhere. Now I'm starting to get to the significance, kind of like Livermore Gray. So I was thinking maybe what I should do is I should try to write something like her. And maybe I would try this technique where she just writes one line at the beginning and then ends it. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to write a story about my mom using this stuff. And I'm going to start by saying something like, my mom has a smile that can light up a room. Or, my mom can talk to anyone and make them happy. Or, my mom sings all the time, but it's out of key. So I'm just trying to experiment with some of those. I'm still not sure which one I'm going to use yet. But I'm going to try that in my writing notebook. I'm going to try some different lines. And I'm going to try to think if I could do the same thing Livermore Gray did. I could start the story with that line, and then go into maybe a story about her 75th birthday, and then go back again to the end and put that same line at the end. And see if it sort of matches the significance that Livermore Gray got across.
Maybe the first line, hello world, maybe that like included quote.
Right, like something that she says.
Yeah.
Hello world. Thank you. Yeah, I might even try that. And start with that, and then just describe her and end it, and somehow weave that quote into it.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for the suggestion.
I agree with Nicole, and we'll do that, and probably have it a couple more times in the book, but every time probably, and she always sings that kind of day, like
Right.
hello world, and then do stuff on each page or something.
Great. Great idea. So now what Nicole and Haley are helping me to do is I'm taking Livermore Gray's book and I'm using it to help me do some writing. And that's called using this book as a mentor text. A mentor is somebody that you look up to teach you something. So and try to see if you can put it into your writing somehow today. Okay?
What did you see while you were in Washington, D.C.?
I went to visit a famous museum. I really enjoyed it, I really liked it, but the weirdest thing happened to me. I started to feel really dizzy, so then I decided to leave the museum and I decided to go back home. But I started to feel worse and worse, so I decided to go visit the doctor. And the doctor said, "No, you look fine, but if it gets worse, then feel free to go ahead and come back again." So I said, "Okay, that's fine." So I went back home and I couldn't sleep at night all night long. I was tossing and turning, and then I started to itch all over my body. So then the next day I went back to the doctor, and the doctor looked at me and said, "You have fever. So maybe it's something, you can have chocolate or eat something sweet."
So, did that make you feel better?
So I got a lot of sweet foods, and I was eating a bunch of them, but it just made me feel worse. It didn't work. So then the next day, that afternoon and the next day, I started to feel worse and worse. So then my mom and my aunt and I decided to go to the hospital. But when we left the house, I was feeling really dizzy, and so I got in the car, and then what happened was we were in the car, and a car was driving by, and I couldn't see. It was very close. It was very, very close, and it went right by us. So my mom was very mad, but we didn't have time. We couldn't because we were deaf. So then we arrived at the hospital, and when we arrived at the hospital, the doors open. So I went into the hospital, and the doctor looked me over and said, "Yes, you are really sick. It's really bad. So I'm going to need you just." So I decided to stay at the hotel instead of going back home. We stayed there for 2 days. But all day I watched TV with my brother. My mom was sleeping all day also.
That's too bad that you were sick on your vacation.
Really, my mom and I were trying to decide what we were going to do about the house, without the interpreter for. So then I said no, and then we were doing it again and again. And so then finally she said okay. So the next day, that's when I got sick.
Did you get to do anything fun while you were there?
When I was in Washington, D.C., met up with my mom's friend, Ruth, and her 2 kids. One of them is my age, and then one of them is younger than me, more about my brother's age. But we grew up with, my mom grew up with her friend, and the other one is, we grew up together as well, but we haven't seen them for a long time. So we played.
Did you see any other museums or do much sightseeing while you were there?
When I went to visit when I went to visit the museum, we did see one other museum. It was a Holocaust museum. It was really sad in the museum because there was one girl who lived through the camps, and she was young and she lived through the Holocaust camp. After that, we went to visit the Washington, D.C. monument. It was very windy that day. So when we went in, we couldn't go in because there was too much wind happening. But the other museum we got to visit, it was the Abraham Lincoln Museum. And the sign for Abraham Lincoln is A and L. really it was interesting to see because I had never seen that before.
After your bad experience being sick, do you think you'd like to go back to Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, last July, we went ahead and went back to Washington, D.C. for Gallaudet camp. So I finally got to see what it was really like because I wasn't sick this time.
Did you see anything different the second time you were there?
We did get to see more of Gallaudet and the kids that were deaf there as well.